Okay, so I just want to demo two things. One is we've created this walking skeleton of the new Octopus Data Center Manager, and if anybody's got a better name for it, I think we're going to be all ears. It sounds very enterprising, but it's kind of the thing that will underpin the Spaces work. And for those who don't know about that and customers listening online, there's an RFC coming out about that hopefully this week. So they'll tell you all about it. And the other bit I wanted to show was Swagger and what we get out of that. So the installation experience is the bit I've been working on mostly, and I've come up with an idea that's not unique. Other products use this, which is doing it all via PowerShell. So the first step would be to import our PowerShell module, and I'm thinking about rolling this into Octopus or a separate thing that we put up onto the NuGet packages. But for now, I'm just going to install it locally from this script. So this just imports over some PowerShell modules. And then we can run install Octopus Data Center Manager. And by default, it'll install to see Octopus. It looks up at AWS, pulls down the latest version number, and then pulls down the zip file with that version in it. So this is a .NET Core binary, standalone, built for Windows 7. So don't need .NET installed or anything like that. So now it's unzipped it into C Octopus Data Center Manager bin. Cool. It's successfully installed. All done. So first time run, it tells us we need to run this command. So run that. There we go. And at the moment, it gets us to the Swagger interface. So just looking back at that, it's listening on port 80 ODCM by default, and it's running in interactive mode. It's under my user account. That's as an admin. Cool. So Swagger. So what is Swagger? It's a couple of things. What you're seeing at the moment is JavaScript user interface essentially to the API. This is generated from the ASP.NET Core definitions. I chose that over Nancy because they're a lot more typed. So the inputs and outputs of ASP.NET are a lot more defined, whereas Nancy, everything's dynamic. There are Nancy ones, but they don't look as mature or as full-featured. So I haven't done any extra configuration other than declaring my controllers and my methods on those controllers and the resources in and out. The other thing Swagger can give you is a user interface or a method to declare your API using JSON or YAML, and then generate classes off that. But I hate generated code on that sort, so might as well make your definition in code because that's a lot better. Swagger does support XML comments, so we can document all that extra stuff in XML. The third thing Swagger could give us is generating client resources and classes off the API definition. So we pointed at this document here and go, create me all the classes, and there's our client library in JavaScript, Ruby, whatever else you want, or the end consumer can do it themselves. Which solves that kind of problem of keeping those resources and methods in line. And also will show up any breaking changes. So I think that's the three things Swagger does for us. There's built-in API versioning. One thing it doesn't give us is hypermedia. They've thought about adding it, but it's probably going to be a roll our own or do the same thing we've always been doing with hypermedia. Okay, so demo of Swagger. So I've got an API to get the node configuration of this particular install. Gives us an example, gives us what the model looks like, and a way of trying it out. Try it out. Tells us the curl command, URL, all these details, response code, and the actual JSON that came back. So I'm going to copy that because I want to actually set this up. So this is now the initial install experience of Data Center Manager for now, until we get an actual UI on top of it. But the UI will just do these calls, right? Or we'll initially wrap some PowerShell around it, so you can just do it from the command line if we don't get around to doing a UI in time. Just going to specify odcm.config quote. Cool. So I'm going to post this to this endpoint. And what this is going to do is it's going to set up my initial configuration file, my log directory, my working directory, and thank you. I missed a quote there. And the features that are enabled. And at the moment, we've got two features. One is the interface, so kind of API and UI. The other one is whether it acts as an agent to manage Octopus instances. Connection string, I'm just going to keep as null. It's not used at the moment.
What's the alternative to acting as an agent?
So the two things this thing will do is act as a management interface, so UI and authentication and configuring the spaces. The other one is actually installing a space on this local machine. So you'll have other agents running on other VMs, which could run in agent-only mode, more like a tentacle.
Yeah. So they're actually instances of the ODCM running in agent mode. That's what we'll install.
At the moment, yeah.
Okay.
Or it could be a separate thing, just like a tentacle, an Octopus server and tentacle are, which manages the actual spaces on it. Cool. So when I hit try this, post this message, it's going to create that config file, install the service, and restart. So at the moment, it's running in interactive mode. So if I could try it out, switch back, you can see that it's running some PowerShell scripts in the background. This is to reconfigure the service, and in 5 seconds, it's going to kill the process and start it as a service. And that's the bit I'm up to. So when I refresh, it's not found because the service didn't start properly yet. But that's the idea. So that's the first run install. And from then on, it runs as Windows service, points to config file. The registry is not used. Yeah. So I'll show you what it looks like in services. So at the command line, I pass in the path config file, which will have all the bootstrap information, master key, connection string, and so forth. Yeah. Cool. So that's where we're up to. So a walking skeleton, essentially, installation. Awesome.
Nice. Oh, yeah. Could the alternative to it running as an agent, could it not just be an actual tentacle?
Yes.
Yep.
Tentacle's got, I'm on the fence about it at the moment. We haven't discussed it as a team, but then you've got calamari to transfer. You've got how you do shared certificates. I haven't really thought it through. But the idea of the agent might be that it just shells out the same way Tentacle does at the moment, like local scripts, right? Allow the execution of local scripts.
Sure.
So it might be so when you actually hit that flag on, it'll show up in the UI as something you can deploy to. How it actually does it might be up to future.
Yep.
Yeah. Any other questions? No? Good. Cool. Me. All right.
I'll just share my screen.
No.
All right, I assume that's coming through from the laughter. Cool. Yeah, we had another long weekend. So got some great feedback from the last presentation. Thanks for everybody for the feedback on Twitter and internally. It was really cool. But I thought I'd have a look into a little bit of TypeScript because I had a few people, more than a few people saying, hey, you should check out TypeScript. The main purpose was really to go from prototype code to sort of minimum viable product, because we want to try and get this on the App Store as just a little example of the sort of clients you can make with our API. So yeah, to start with this, I am a complete beginner at TypeScript. I'm not a front-end JavaScript developer. I mean, I do it when I have to, but yeah, I'm more of an API person really. So learning all this TypeScript stuff was really cool. And the way I thought I'd approach this was that I'd pretend that I didn't write the original code. So I looked back at the code that I wrote over the 4-day weekend and said, okay, that's still in JavaScript. Yeah, it's a bit messy. What can we do to fix that? And it was pretty cool because you can get really judgy and you can say, oh, you shouldn't do that, or there's better ways to do that. And so that was a pretty fun experience. I had a few people reach out to me on Twitter saying, that's really cool, but you should check out this TypeScript stuff. And my brain sort of ticked in and went, hang on, that's something that Pavel mentioned a few weeks ago, but I'd never actually looked into. So I thought I would, go into Google, type in TypeScript and see what was going on. So being new to this, I didn't know how you were supposed to approach, going from JavaScript to TypeScript. So I literally just jumped into the deep end. I installed TypeScript, I installed TSLint. I made a whole bunch of TSLint rules, which I'll show you in a sec, to make it fairly strict about what I could and couldn't code on the front end. I installed the VS Code's plugin for TSLint, which was pretty cool. Then I went and literally renamed all of my .js files to .tsx. Oh crap. There was so much red, it was ridiculous. So the cool thing about the TSLint rules was, I just opened up my project, got all excited, and then TypeScript was basically telling me that I was a very bad JavaScript developer. This was the example of the TSLint rules that I put in place for this project. So you can define all sorts of really cool things, like the way you use semicolons and quotations and white space and variable name things and max line lengths, just pretty much anything you could imagine you could define. So I put a whole bunch of rules that I like to code against really. And I hadn't been following my own rules. There were so many things wrong, it was ridiculous. But I just started from the top and worked my way down. And anytime I got into a problem, just off to Google, how do you fix this? Okay. And the class is now all in TypeScript. Everything makes a lot more sense. And because it's a typed language, it's a lot more like reading your typical C# now. Because I was doing so many things wrong just in the way I was declaring JavaScript functions differently in 3 different places. And I think JavaScript, just like PHP, it lends itself to abuse if you get a bit lazy. That was TypeScript. There were some cool lessons from them. I also wanted to do a quick design overhaul, but keeping in light of the original theme that I was going for. So originally it was looking like this, and I just stole some colors from the website initially, but you could sort of write the header isn't done properly. You've got colors that are mismatching with the settings, logo and stuff like that. So I went through and did a design review to make it look a little bit more lighter. I stole some colors from our homepage actually, because I found that the softer blue on the homepage worked better in the smaller app setting, because you've got a different ratio of blue to white when you're on a small mobile screen compared to the website. So I think those colors are working really well now. So that's all looking really good. We've cleaned up the settings and actually put a vector icon up there. And the other cool thing about this is I think when I first opened the app, I'm sort of reading from the top down. I'm going, okay, in my world of Octopus, I'm currently looking at 9 machines or 10 releases, or I'm looking at 10 tasks across all of my instances. So that kind of, as a story, makes sense to me from an app point of view. One thing that I learned along the way when doing this was React style sheets, which I thought were really cool. As soon you can actually define style sheets to be a certain style. So if you're defining something on text, you can say, no, this is a text style or a view style or an image style. And the cool thing about that is if you try and add a CSS property that is not supported by an image style, it'll tell you straight away. So you get instant feedback as you're writing your code, which I thought was pretty cool. Little things like that can help clean up the code bases. I did a quick Redux review. I think it makes a little bit more sense now. It's a little bit cleaner. So any new developers coming in can sort of understand what's going on. So you've got a Redux store which wraps my app. That makes sense. I can dispatch actions to my store. So when I'm going through the code base and I see lines like this, it actually makes sense. I can see, okay, I'm dispatching an action to my store. It kind of makes sense to me. And components can obviously listen for state changes on my Redux store. And so that's how they can detect state in other areas of the code. So I thought that makes a lot more sense now. It's a bit cleaner, easier to understand. So then like the final test, I guess, was to do a device performance review. Actually put it on a device. So I got all excited, got my iPhone 6 out, plugged it in. Paul set us up with an Apple dev account, so I was able to get the production certificates and ad hoc provisioning profiles all sorted. And then I ran it on the device, and so bad. Like the swiping going between tabs was just chunking like crazy, and I couldn't figure out what was going on because. But then you think about it, right? I'm running all this code on an i7 iMac 5K with 32 gigs of RAM and a super fast like SSD flash storage hard drive, and then you put it on a mobile device. So I had to figure out what was going wrong. So I booted up Instruments, which comes with Xcode, which was really cool. And I knew it was something going wrong with the UI thread, like something was just doing too much work. So I dug down into the React text layers, which you can do through Instruments. And I was watching the screen, and as the timer was ticking down, like once I got to 0 and I knew the API call was being refreshed, these pointer addresses were changing. I'm like, that's weird. What's going on there? And then it sort of clicked in my mind. I wasn't doing any sort of local caching on these tabs. So every single time the API went out, it got a new bunch of tasks. It came back. It told the list view, hey, you need to refresh this. The list view would then go, okay, I've got a whole bunch of new data. I need to re-render. And so it was re-rendering all these things all the time, even when it didn't necessarily need to. Because you think about Octopus, like your machines don't change that often. The tasks don't change that often. So now I've got local caching on those tab screens. And as soon as I put that in place, it's able to check now once it gets a response from the API, it goes, oh, nothing's changed against these hash codes. Don't bother re-rendering. As soon as I did that, performance was a lot better. So that was really cool, an interesting experience. A little React gotcha I learned along the way. Set state that you use in React land is asynchronous. So there's sometimes when you want to use callbacks to make sure that you're reading the current value when the thing that you're trying to set the state actually gets executed. So a little example I've got here will show you the difference between those two. If you were to just call set state and directly call instance service.list_all-enabled like I'm doing there, you might get a different result compared to when it actually runs if you were to do it via a callback. So when you're writing React and calling set state, there's just little things like that you've got to be aware of. With all that in mind, the Octowatch is now public. So if people out there in the community are interested in writing their own little client against the Octopus API, we've got an example there, which I can click through. I'll just show you some of this stuff. I'll just remove Gomez from the background. There we go. And yeah, I've got screenshots to show people what it is, and we've got a summary of the tech showing how it's built with React, how we're using Realm for the persistent storage, TypeScript, TS-lint rules, all that stuff. So yeah, if you're interested in React Native or TypeScript or any of this stuff, definitely encourage you to check it out. Yeah, that is all from me.
Cool.
That's awesome, Mark.
Nice. Looks great. Are we going to publish it to the store?
Yeah, that's the plan. So I want to catch up with Paul after, and I'll probably need some help with anyone who's got an iOS device who would be willing to run a quick test over it. I can put you on the ad hoc provisioning profile and send you a build and yeah, go from there.